Hey guys, what's up? Thank you for tuning in. So, today I wanted to talk briefly about the differences between permission and permissionless blockchains. It's not actually quite as simple as blockchains falling in two camps. It's actually best, in my opinion, to look at two axes, namely open versus closed and versus permissionless. And actually, any given blockchain case can fall in a sort of field defined by two axes. Uh, so, looking first at open versus closed, which is the simplest. So, open blockchains are blockchains that are out there on the internet that anyone can see. You can see it running. It's not hidden behind a firewall or a VPN, whereas a closed blockchain is something that might be running on a corporate intranet or on a VPN between a number of different participants. Now, looking at other accesses, we have permission versus permissionless. And again, this breaks down into several parts. A permissionless blockchain is a blockchain where anybody can download the software, run it on their computer, and join in and start mining the blocks. That is adding data to the blockchain or submitting transaction to the blockchain that then get packaged into these blocks and that are mined. So when you have a permission blockchain, then you basically start having kind of like user accounts where not everybody is allowed to mine blocks. For example, the entity that sets up the blockchain basically hands out the permissions. Similarly, you may actually have the submission of transactions being permission in that not just anybody can submit transaction to the blockchain. Now, you actually have to have a valid address or account uh, on the blockchain to be able to do that. Mm, And finally, you can even have the blockchain permissions in such a way that not all the data is readable or visible to all the parties. So this can be done, for example, by encrypting the data that is put on the blockchain and then sharing the key selectively with the participants. So this was basically an overview of permission versus permissionless blockchains. Now, another thing that you may be wondering is why would I want to run a permissioned blockchain rather than a permissionless blockchain? And the answer to that is that really depends upon your use case. If you have a consortium of companies or entities who are getting together to do a joint project, they won't want the entire world to be able to use their blockchain. They don't want it to be, they don't want it to be overwhelmed by a load of servers suddenly going online in a different country and subverting the purpose of the blockchain. Similarly, if you had, for example, a voting blockchain, then you want to allow citizens of that country where the vote is being held to vote. But you don't want citizens from other countries being able to influence the politics of the country for which the blockchain has been launched. So it's a bit like the difference between the internet being open and the companies running the intranet or a VPN system to make sure that not just anybody can wander in and do stuff. Now, the thing you need to be aware of is that blockchains are not optimized for big data. You don't want to be loading a large video files or an MP3 or the big data from AI analytics onto the blockchain. They do have a specific purpose. If you have a big data, you should use your optimized database for that. But what blockchains are actually good for? Well, uh, they are good for transactions. That's where you have a small fact or a small piece of data that you want to communicate. In the case of financial transaction, that's a very clear thing. It's transferring assets from one entity to another. So they make a good case. Another situation where blockchain may be useful is to store hashes of big data on the blockchain so that other parties can see that the data hasn't been tampered with. They can retrieve the data from a database, then they can check on the blockchain that the data is in unchanged format. And then a third use case might be, for example, on actual user permissioning. So you can have accounts on the blockchain, and admins can basically use the blockchain for data signaling. Say this account is now suspended, or this digital certificate is valid for use in this purpose. So these were some of the, actually, if you see, these were some of the use cases where the blockchains can actually be used. Now, blockchains are actually disrupting the financial sector too, and from my perspective, it is disrupting the financial sector more than anything else, and that is why we are seeing companies and banks like DTCC, JP Morgan, UBS, etc., have been investing big time on this technology. So, if you want to use blockchains, there are quite a few open source, freely available blockchains engines out there. You should use an engine that's been written by some team, not try to roll your own, because you can leverage the work that's gone into making these. I've already uploaded a video uh, on enterprise blockchain, and you can see all of them actually are open source, and you can actually use most of them, and you build your own application for your own use case. So, all right, so I hope this was informative. Let me know by liking this video, and thank you for listening and tuning into this channel. Thank you very much.